The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And this is the NRLW Grand Final review that was played on Sunday night. It was the Roosters taking on the Cronulla Sharks. And look, what a game this was. 32 points to 28. Won by the Roosters. And look, I did say to a few people when talking about this game that it was the best NRLW game that I think I have seen being played. There has been some crackers, but this was an absolute cracker of a game, this one. Unbelievable game, this one. Two pretty much evenly matched sides. Look, going into the game, a lot of people did favour the Sydney Roosters, look, star-studded side that they do have. Their Dally M Player of the Year from this year, Olivia Koenig, names like Millie Elliott, Keely Davis as well, Isabel Kelly, Jessica Sergis, and just to name a few there. Look, they were probably fancied to win this competition. The Sharks, the second year in their history in the NRLW that they have made finals and then made the grand final, so a massive effort from them. Probably didn't have the big names in their competition, in their side. They do have a few big names in their team. Obviously, former Dally M Player of the Year, Emma Tonagato, Tiana Penatani, Anessa Biddle in the centres. She has come a long way as well. Not a big name, but a great player. Taylor Preston, who played in the 2022 NRLW Grand Final for Parramatta. Quincy Dodd as well. So they've got a few names in there, but probably not as many as the Roosters. They have been there before. A lot more of their players had been there before in a grand final and won grand finals. Amber Hall, Jasmine Strange off the interchange bench as well. Obviously, Millie Elliott, Taryn Aiken as well is another name that I missed out in the first round there. But then also their superstar fullback as well. I forgot about her, Sam Bremner. What a story that is. Missed, I think, the first game of the year. Could have possibly been the first two games of the year. And got a call from Coach John Strange. And I think it was when something along the lines of she was sitting on the lounge at home and she asked her husband what he thought. And he said, yeah, sure, go for it. It could be your final opportunity to win a NRLW title. And she has. Look at that. She's won it now. So, look, that is a magnificent effort there. She's ticked every box in the game. Played for New South Wales, played for Australia, but hadn't won an NRLW Grand Final. So that was one of the fairy tales going into this game. That was one of them. The centre pairing, Sergis and Kelly, they were under injury clouds. Sergis made her comeback last week. Isabel Kelly as well played last week after suffering a elbow injury against Parramatta in the last game of the regular season. So, look, they were probably always going to play, but certainly that injury cloud was over them as well. There a lot of, I guess you could say, pressure was on Taryn Aiken as well, being the halfback of the team. A lot of people tipped her, including myself, to be the Karen Murphy medal winner, which is the equivalent of the Clive Churchill medal winner, but the Karen Murphy medal winner in the NRLW. And obviously the experience of Millie Elliott, Amber Hall, who had played in grand finals before as well, the Dally M Player of the Year, Olivia Koenig as well. So, look, this game started off unbelievably. The Roosters, they got out to a 24-0 at halftime lead, and look, you dead set thought that this game is done and dusted. The Roosters will just have to come out in the second half and just play like the first half, and they'll have this game won. But we thought, what could the Cronulla Sharks do? They ended up scoring 28 points and only 4 points off the Roosters, and that ending the last couple of minutes of that game, when Tiana Penatani scored the try, the last try of the game. They denied the kick at goal to give themselves a shot at levelling up, scoring a try and levelling up the scores and then having a kick to win. But it wasn't to be. Tiana Penatani, what a game she had for the Cronulla Sharks, scored 2 tries. She got them on the board for the Sharks in the second half, and that's what they needed. 3 minutes after half time, they needed to be the first 1, 2, 3, 4 tries to score. They ended up scoring 5, but they definitely needed that first one after half time to get their confidence up and get back into this game. Look, going back to the start of the game, Olivia Koenig, the Dally M Player of the Year, what a season she has had. Scored the first try of the game. It was an absolute cracker. Bridie Parker as well scored a double. Surgis, she scored a good try, made a bit of a line break and then a dummy, and then scored pretty much around underneath the posts. And Olivia Koenig scored the last of the Roosters' try, 6 tries to 5. Jocelyn Kelleher, 3 from 6 from the boot. She did have hard ones from the sidelines. She did score a penalty goal as well, and her kicking game as well. She put up some pretty high balls, some of them that were pretty testing for Emma Tonagato at the back there. I think there was one that was dropped by her, but she did put them up pretty high. A massive boot on her. And I certainly wouldn't want to be at fullback trying to catch a ball like that. But the Roosters, as I said, they went into the game as favourites. Who was there? Olivia Koenig, 36 tackles as well. 196 metres from Millie Elliott. Absolutely outstanding. And look, Millie is now in the record books for winning 3 NRLW premierships for 3 different clubs. The Brisbane Broncos, the Newcastle Knights, and now the Sydney Roosters. So only Glenn Lazarus in the men's game has done that. He, of course, won premierships at Canberra, Brisbane, and the Melbourne Storm. But now Millie has done it in the women's game. So absolutely fantastic effort there. Look, for the Sharks, Quincy Dodd, 41 tackles. And that lady there, Tiana Penatani, the captain of the Sharks, 191 run metres, 2 line breaks, 2 tries. That was a massive game from her. And she has now earned a Australian selection in the Pacific Championships that are coming up. So Isabel Kelly, 16 runs, 178 metres. Look, just keeps on going and going. Second most metres in the game for the Roosters, but that's what we've seen from her all season. There was one game earlier this season where she did run for 350 metres, but another 178 metres to her. As I mentioned, Millie Elliott, 20 runs, 196 metres, and also 24 tackles as well. So a huge effort there. Amber Hall, I thought, was pretty impressive. Did always takes a little bit to take Amber down. You always see about 3 or 4 defenders trying to get her down. There was a few opportunities close to the line for her. She did some cracking tackles. And again, I definitely would not want to be on the end of those ones for sure. But some big tackles on the defence, which also caused some drop balls, I think it was. So, yeah, a massive effort from her. Olivia Koenig, well, Dahlia Medalist of the Year for the NRLW, 18 runs, 180 metres, and also 36 tackles as well. So, a massive game from her. She could have been the Karen Murphy medalist, but it went to Taryn Aiken. She was the one guiding the team around. And 9 runs, 56 metres, but it's not about those ones. 1 tackle break, also 8 tackles, but it's not about that one as well. Her kicking game as well, her passes as well, the timed passes, absolutely outstanding there. And that's what you want your halfback to do. You want to be those ones who put you in the gaps, but once again, well deserved for the Karen Murphy medal. Look, if we flick over the page to the Sharks, look, I guess they left their run too late. As I said before, 24-0 at half-time. Just left their run too late. Anessa Biddle, 14 runs, 150 metres. Emma Tonegado, 16 runs, 144 metres. Ellie Johnston as well scored a try, the front rower for the Sharks, and it was a pretty crucial time in the game as well. 61 minutes of the game gone. It was the third last try in the game. It was the second last of the Sharks try, and you thought, look, if they can get this, or they got that try at the time, if they could get a try and convert it, which Taylor Preston did as well, because this try was scored right under the post, then they could be back in this game. Unfortunately, the Roosters scored the next try through Olivia Koenig, but then, as I mentioned before, Tiana Penatani did score that last try, and it was a very exciting 2 minutes at the end there. But back to Ellie Johnston, she had a great game, 16 runs, 131 metres, 1 try. She's a good front rower, does a job. 32 tackles made in the game and no missed tackles. That's a pretty fair effort, that one there. A great effort there. Quincy Dodd, she also scored a try, 41 tackles in the game, 9 runs for 50 metres. Holly Wheeler, she came back from suspension, started off on the bench and then came onto the field. Tegan Dimmick, the daughter of Jim Dimmick, started the game, had a pretty solid game as well. Taylor Preston was, I guess, a little bit quiet. Her kicking game was pretty reasonable, but we didn't see her outstanding in the game. Georgia Hanaway, she was pretty good. Scored a try as well. It's a really good running try. If you get to see it, have a look at that one. And she has come of age in this game. She burst on the scene this year, I think it was, and really crucial part of this Cronulla Sharks side. There was a few question marks going into this game for the Sharks. They did win their first 6 games of the year. They lost their next 3, but they did keep the Broncos to 0 in the semi-final to earn themselves a spot in the grand final. The first time in the Broncos' history that they have been kept to 0. But look, as I said, that last 2 minutes, I didn't know who was going to win. I thought maybe there could be a Sharks miracle and even up the scores and then have a kick at goal to win, but it wasn't to be, and the Roosters got away with the win. So congratulations to them. I do believe it is their second competition win in the NRLW now. They did win one in 2021 against the Dragons. That grand final was played up in Queensland, but they have got another one here. They missed out on the minor premiership. That went to the Brisbane Broncos, but they ended up getting the grand prize, the grand final win. And look, as I mentioned before, probably the fairy tale out of that one was Sam Bremner winning that competition. But look, that was a great story. Millie Elliott winning her another premiership at another club. That was a great story as well. Olivia Koenig winning the grand final, the premiership after the year that she's had, obviously winning that Dally M player of the year for the NRLW as well. Look, the Sharks, they will be happy. It was a massive effort from the Sharks. As I said, a lot of people probably wrote them off against the Broncos a week ago in that semi-final due to them with that losing streak, but they pulled through. They got that win 14-0, and they never gave up. They never gave up, even though it was 24-0 at halftime. They never gave up. They knew they had to come back. They knew they had to come back and score, which they did after half-time. But look, it was a pretty evenly matched game, to be honest. 51% to the Roosters in possession, 49% to the Sharks. The Sharks had a little bit more time in possession. They both had the same number of sets in the game. The Sharks just having 2 less completions than the Roosters at 23 out of 34 sets. Pretty much identical runs. The Roosters ran for about 100 more metres. 1 more line break than the Sharks as well. Missed tackles, the Sharks 7 more than the Roosters. So look, it was all pretty much evenly matched. The offload 6 to the Sharks, 4 to the Roosters. So it was a pretty evenly matched game. And as I said, in the end, the Roosters just got away with it. So look, as I mentioned before, that was probably one of the best NRLW games that I've ever seen. And look, it was great to see that. I think it was at halftime of this game that they did have about 40,000 there watching this game. So look, that is a fantastic thing to see, that these women are playing in front of a big crowd on the big stage, which they deserve. And I encourage you next year, if you can, and if you do support one of these teams that are in the NRLW, to get out there and watch one of these NRLW games, because the sport is growing, the quality is getting better and better every year. This game, as I said before, was one of the best games that I've ever seen. The State of Origin games that they do play as well mid-season, they are pretty good to watch as well, but the quality of these games is very, very good. They are exciting games. They can score big scores in these games. So as I said, if you can get to one of these games, then please do, because they are great games to watch. So it was good to see them play in front of 40,000 people, 40,000 plus, I should say, because no doubt more would have turned up during the second half. But yeah, look, congratulations to the Roosters, 2-time premiers now. And look, the Sharks also had a great season as well. They are losing a few players next season, most notably Taylor Preston, their halfback. Not too sure who will go into halfback for them, but that is a pretty important position in a football team. So it'll be interesting to see who the Sharks get for halfback. Tegan Dimmick as well, I believe, is going to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, who will enter the competition in 2025, along with the New Zealand Warriors, who will come back into the competition next season. So 12 NRLW teams next season in 2025, which is great to see. There'll be an extra 2 weeks of regular rounds, no doubt. Not too sure if the final series may increase to maybe a top 5 team, top 5 final series perhaps. Due to that extra team, at the moment it stands at four teams in the finals and only one semi-final. Perhaps they could go back to the old rugby, the old men's system in the rugby league of top 5. The minor premiers have the first week off, and then the other 4 teams play off. Maybe something like that. I'm not too sure how they'll work it, but maybe it'll be a top 5. You probably don't want it to be a top 6 because that means half the sides will make the semi-finals. But maybe that might have to be what they have to do. But I think it might be a top 5 final series. We saw this year the Parramatta Eels just miss out on the finals this season. That last game against the Roosters, they needed to win and win by a good margin to get into the finals. So, look, I think it'll be a top 5 next year. So, the women's game is growing and growing. Next season in 2025 as well in Las Vegas, the Gillaroos are playing the Kiwi Ferns, which will be great to watch. And later this month as well, the Pacific Championships are on as well in both the men's and the women's. So there will be some quality games to be watched as well. So if you can and if you're able to, then give those ones a watch. I think they're in Brisbane, and I think the finals are at CommBank Stadium in Parramatta. So if you can, as I said before, try and get to that game and watch these women run around and play footy, because that's what they do, play footy. Look, I hope you enjoyed that review of the NRLW Grand Final, the Telstra Women's Premiership. And look, it was another quality season this year of Women's Rugby League, and it's surely going to get bigger and better next season in 2025. So thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed that one, please share it with your family and friends and give it a 5-star rating and review. That would be most appreciated. Look, I hope you enjoyed my NRLW coverage throughout the year. A couple of times there, a special guest, Kiana Takarangi, joined me as well. Hopefully next year she can jump back on board as well. I know she has commitments here and there, commentating with ABC Sport, and the timings don't necessarily work for us of a Saturday due to, obviously work commitments and the like, but hoping I can get her back on board next season for the NRLW, and all the best to her in the Pacific Championships as well. I think the Cook Islands are playing in the NRL, or not the NRLW, but in the women's side of the draw in the Pacific Championships. So congratulations to her on making that side, and all the best in those Pacific Championships. Thank you very much for joining me, and look, that has been one hell of a NRLW season. Looking forward to next season as well. Catch you next time on the podcast. Look, as I mentioned before, there is the Pacific Championships coming up, so footy hasn't finished yet. So I will catch you next time on the Para Cave podcast.
Hello, Paracave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Paracave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.